right, let's get this thing started. We got Michael James Garber and Ron Emmett on today. These shows resonate with you, please share. We're getting suppressed big time on both Facebook and YouTube. But if you could share this to one group or to your page, that would help a lot. Let me get the guys up here. All right. What's going on, gentlemen?
Hi there.
What's happening?
Just making sure all is good.
Yeah. Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I had a rough day yesterday. I think we've had a few rough days here and there over the last few weeks. How about you guys?
I can relate.
it's up and down and all around and all that good stuff. And we're also in the middle of helping some friends of ours that we're staying with. They're moving to a new house. So while all of this is happening, we're moving their, two-story house to another two-story house.
Oh wow! So where you guys? You guys are always on the move. Where y'all at now?
We're in Ashland. We're in Oregon.
Oh, you're back in Ashland.
Yeah. Once we came back to the US, I spent a couple weeks out a little bit further out into the forest. So it was really nice. I was just with the trees, with the cedar trees, and on a friend's farm for a couple weeks. And now I'm making my way back out with the human population.
Even though,
right?
Everyone's staying quite distant.
Yeah.
Well, that gives them more time to spend with themselves, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of how this thing works. Morgan received a download or guidance at the end of last month to load up as many divine couples as possible this coming month, in March, which there's been about 20, I think, scheduled 22. And you guys have come on and been very transparent in the past, which is beautiful because it offers everybody the opportunity to see that we're all the same. So many people that are pulling in information and activations and connected the way you guys are, especially two. It's easy for us to go, wow, I wish I could be like them, but you guys are so raw and so real. And I'm really happy to be talking to you again today. It's one thing to go through this transition we call ascension as an individual, but it's a whole nother experience when you're doing it with someone else, and it doesn't make it better or worse. It just enhances it, both in the extremes of both polarities, the negative and the positive, and I'm talking charges, not like good and evil or dark and light. But so how's these last few weeks been for you guys as you've journeyed through it?
I must say actually that in the last month we had quite big triggers coming up, and we were kind of doing a lot of we took our time to do inner work and to notice what it is to the next level. And I feel like also we stepped through a big we did huge good work, really.
When he says triggers, he means gut-wrenching suffering.
And I can share one thing that I could say that was really different this time than other time that we had things coming up, that I said about myself. For myself, I just decided to look at it a little bit differently. And when things came up, sometimes I have that tendency to want to kind of have space and run away and take a week for myself, or not speak to him for some time, or teaching him a lesson in some way or another, or and this time I decided to just stay and sit with my pain and stay in the field of it, and actually to really do a process of really learning more about it and see how I can really heal myself in the spot and talk about it and see what rises from that experience, and without running away, without trying to dim it down, and with taking the break that I needed to in order to listen to really what's going on, and and to shift from blaming and this kind of place of like, you did that and now I feel like this and da, da, da. And to really be able to like speak more clearly about my experience, about my desires, um, and it's shifted a lot. It shifted many things, and it's maybe we have expectation, you know, of like different things. Sometimes, like for ourselves, it was a project that we wanted to create together, and it was slowed down a lot by the arguments that we had. But there was a really great work that did in another way that maybe not accomplished what we wanted to accomplish, and we've been slowed down. But we did another work that I think will assist any other project that we'll do later on.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was big for us, but it was a good time.
Yeah, good time. Yeah. We had a couple of episodes like that in the last 3 or 4 weeks. We had a period where I was in the RV for 3 nights, 4 days, 3 nights, or 4 nights and 3 days.
Yeah.
Uh, and and so it was just interesting because it's very similar to what you're talking about. We just in the normal course of things, I think I was working all day and then doing shows, and then she was downloading all day some really important information that had to do with projects.
Yeah.
And so whenever I came off the shows, she wanted to talk. I really didn't want to talk. I
Yeah.
wanted to decompress, but I didn't say that. So
Mhm.
anyway, it was a short conversation. It kind of went like that. But what I'm identifying with and what you're talking about, the energy of it, is there was no blame. There was just I went my way, she went her way. We just messaged a little bit. There was nothing personal. And we came back together when we were in alignment.
Yeah.
Then it happened again a couple nights ago. She went into some fears. She talked to some of her family back at home, and I asked her what was going on, and she told me. She said my human is in fear. I feel like I want to go home, and I said okay, all right,
Yeah.
and that was it. There was no taking anything personal, like how come you're treating me like this, and the same thing Ron was saying. So
Yeah.
I think that's a great sign. And the other thing that I wanted to point out too, the last time Michael was on, we
Yeah.
talked a bit about your relationship, just briefly. And he said something, and I repeated it probably on every single show I did with the Divine Couple since then, because it was right before we started doing the couples. And Michael said that no matter what happens, no matter where we're at, how aligned we are, or how misaligned we are, for lack of a better word, we get up every day and our focus is the mission, our joint mission. It never leaves us. And I really valued that comment by Michael, because I could appreciate it, because I know that's relevant in the relationship I'm in and these other couples I've talked to. There is a third energy, a consciousness that's developed by the love between the two people that almost has a life of its own. And that is a foundational aspect of the relationship, which does bring a lot to the relationship. It does bring it, even in those times that are so good, like you just described.
Yeah. 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 Um, it's come up a lot, the conversation about the twin flames and what does it actually mean, and if it's many people want to find their twin flame, but they're also sometimes not aware of how much that brings to deal with, and how much work being done in a personal way and in a collective way when those beings are coming together. And
I want to bring up also, like, because sometimes we have this conversation where he may bring up something about twin flames, and for me, I align with that. when it's useful, and then at other times I see that it's just another identity, it's just another attachment, it's just another story that we tell ourselves that can trip us up, that causes different aversions, different just different mental, emotional things that go with it. So I also have to also just be sovereign,
Yeah.
and not just like, I'm a twin flame, so that means we have to be merged together all the time and agree on everything, which never really happens.
It's true though.
And that identity, that passing identity of twin soul, can really cause a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yet at the same time, it really does speak to what we feel our mission is with one another, and then also how we share that love with the world. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to share more for the collective kind of information about twin flames and this. Um, I'm sharing it now because I learned about it yesterday quite in depth through one of the sessions that I did yesterday, and that's why I feel called to share about it today. And basically that it's actually happening quite often that many people that are coming to this realization and kind of meeting somebody that doing that for them, creating that that type of connection, there is normally some time of separation in between, and many people are choosing not to step into it because they realize how big, how intense and how big it is, and how much shedding and how much clearing happening with your twin flame and with this type of relationship and awakening. And when they do come together, a lot of the focus are being changed from personal development to the collective and the service work that you do in the work, and then you try to, there's a lot of work that you do together for the collective. So I had many times conversation with my family telling me like, you're working together, you're traveling together, you're doing everything together, you shouldn't do it, it's too much, of course you'll fight, of course you'll do all those things, you shouldn't do things together like this. But also in other aspect, it's just not a really choice, it's coming through us, through our love, through our excitement, through what the thing that we are feeling passionate and mirroring to each other. This is really not my choice, we're just here to do it together. So it's a lot, of course. It's a lot, but it's also rewarding, and I just kind of wanted to express it to those people that are seeking their twin flame in that way, that should also know what they're calling into and be ready to do the work, and not just this like, oh, I want love, I want the one, I want this. It's sometimes it's easier to have just a soulmate friendship and love and just
chill
Yeah.
life.
No, I think that's a brilliant explanation, because it does bring they're not complexities. They're I would say new nuances to what we thought was strictly a romantic relationship. And then some people become confidants, best friends. I mean, but at the core of the old relationships was this romantic thing.
Yeah.
In these, like Ron just said, there's so many other components. And one of those components is that you are together. When you're together, you're pretty much, you have a joint mission as well, in some capacity or another. And you're like siblings, you're like friends, you're like lovers, you're like all these different things. And sometimes the old romance isn't even in the air. You know what I mean? But then at other times, uh, you get your mind blown by these sacred sexual energies that occur, which come in all different ways. They can come from holding hands. It can come from doing so many things. And it's a really intense kind of thing that's, I think, developing with the expansion of this divine union template or energy. One of the things that we just received and we had received it before, but it took a higher level last night, was that each one of these, because you were talking about a minute ago about how your creative efforts together kind of stall when you're not aligned. And what we got last night was that when a couple is aligned with their purpose or a specific aspect or initiative of their purpose, supporting their purpose, uh, and they're actually aligned together and they want the same thing, that because of the work that's been done by couples, they're actually accessing the energetic field of all those couples on the grid. So it's that much more powerful. And I think this is a very new twist based on the information that we received that had to do and coincided with the equinox. Did you guys have anything occur around the equinox that kind of aligns with that or sounds familiar?
I felt I think it was maybe yesterday or the day before, I felt a different, we're watching a TV show called The Magicians right now, and we're so in love with it. There's so much magic. It's like our nightly ritual. Kind of how we're like not doing ascension stuff together. So I'm like laying next to him, and I felt a different energy between the two of us than I had experienced before. That it was a softer, there was a more peaceful, spacious vibration there, and it felt like a different energy, not just like, oh, we're getting along. It was like, oh, this something shifted in the last little bit of time. This is interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the equinox there was a lot of build-up for us clearing before the equinox, and we did also a group meditation, and we did a process before, and the equinox is so beautiful, explaining about equality and bringing all this consciousness for the polarities in so many ways, and the importance of it and finding the balance within it. And I think we'd reached something through the clearing that we did, and through the each one is on work, we reach a new level of like understanding and clarity of how to work in more harmony, and it's felt like shift. There was a nice shift for us, and
it's kind of exhausting. There's like the issues that we fight about that are so painful. It's been the same ones for years, and it like totally like eats away at us. It can take us into hours of conversation of like trying to find that little part that's trying to point it out in each other. Maybe I see your part. Why can't you see yours? But it felt like for whatever reason the energies were right. Maybe we said the right things. Maybe we, whatever it might be, something did feel like it shifted for us. Because usually after we do these lives together, which have been such an important thing for us to offer to our, to whoever watches. But also one of the most painful things for us to do in our relationship, because there's, it's like we've got to, once you're on, and you have to navigate through all the challenges that happen. And, oh, I didn't know that we were going to talk about that thing all of a sudden, or, I didn't feel like I could talk about this thing. So there's all these like quick dynamics that are happening within the live. And then usually after, it's like, okay, good job. Or if we have one critique, the critique would just crumble the whole thing, and then we'd go into hours of trying to figure it out, and just feel exhausted and not really able to like enjoy the nourishment from the project itself, because we just got into so much of our hurt and like wish it had gone this way. And it felt like over this equinox, when we got into our sharing, it did feel like we were able to say some things or some perspectives that we hadn't brought up before, and make some good movement in a new direction. And I think that was part of why I felt the different energy the next day.
Yeah, I think too, and to go back to what you said a minute ago, what Michael said, in talking about the connotation of twin flames or whatever label, everyone knows what we're talking about. But that even when you're in this relationship, obviously it's like a fast track because you do have that mirror, like you said, like you're like, why can't you see that in yourself? And then you start to understand because you can't see something in your own self, things like that.
Yeah.
But one of the things that you were saying is, there's a lot of letting go. There's a lot of surrender, detachment, and one of those things is detaching from the connotations that have been the definitions or the explanations of twin flame or divine union out in the community. I look at Morgan sometimes and I'm like, if there's such thing as a soul splitting in half, in the first breath of Mother Universe, she's got to be the other half. There's just no way this could be possible.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there has to be a detachment,
Yeah.
uh, because every time there's a detachment from that a belief, there's an expansion. And of
Yeah.
course, with the couples, it seems like as we're moved on here, that when one clears something, it's then cleared in the other,
Yeah.
and vice versa. Even though we may not be able to detect it right away, even though it may not happen at the same exact time on the linear timeline,
Yeah.
there seems to be, kind of a closer correlation to the validation or the synchronicity or the understanding or awareness that, hey, she just shifted something, or she just got this information, and whether it's verbalized to me or not, I got it too.
Yeah.
uh, which helps me. I don't know how you feel, but like when there is any misalignment, uh, it's much easier for me now to go into my space and take it all into myself. Yesterday is a great example. I was physically exhausted. I had a sleepless night. I had some stuff going on in my head that I'm not really clear on. A lot of DNA transformation was happening. I could tell with my body. I don't know how I made it through a couple of shows,
Hmm.
but I stayed in my space, not because of anything that happened between us, but because I simply wasn't okay.
Yeah.
And the last thing I wanted to do was project.
Yeah.
And it's hard enough to keep ourselves in alignment. Uh, you know what I mean? And if we're not in alignment, how can the relationship in that moment be in alignment? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that'll be, we'll have to be really super rooted in our heart and not, in a place of reactivity. Because I feel like also we hold the opposite components, meaning like he has something that stimulates my shadows, I have something that stimulates his shadows, and so they're interacting with each other so that I believe, so that we can come to a deeper understanding and clear these energies that we've gathered over
Yeah.
I
trillions of
think it's
lifetimes. But I want to say
yeah.
just one more thing. So I really resonate with what you're saying about when that partner, when one of us heals and completes the work about a certain part of our being, then the other partner can relax because the defensiveness isn't needed anymore, because what was being defended against is no longer needed, is no longer in the other partner. So there's something that happens there, and that when one person heals an aspect of themselves, then the supporting or the conflicting parts that exist in the other person aren't needed anymore.
Yeah.
They can be released and dissolved because they're just not necessary any longer.
Yeah, I want to say two things. One to you about this energy that being mirrored is actually being experienced almost in the double capacity to what he might be experiencing it. Like he would feel something and I would be triggered, but it will be double as much, so I can mirror him and giving the feedback about it. And the same, the opposite. We just have a different the way our energetic fields works is just the opposite in some ways.
Yeah.
And this way it can be so intense to me, something that is maybe a little bit at him, and I will be have to like talk about it or something, and or have to like really get centered to understand it more.
Yeah.
And I wanted to say something about, you mentioned about um, the split of the soul for like the idea of the twin flame. And then it's create this idea that there might be only one like this. And I learned yesterday in the session that we explore the topic of the twin flame. They mentioned that actually it could be few, and that basically it's an agreement of readiness. If for example, if you had this type of relationship that felt like, oh, it's almost my twin flame, but he wasn't ready, and you did the work and he didn't, and he was not ready, and you didn't match up, and you decided to move on, you move on, and there might be someone else that was that there's another twin flame that will come into your life, that um, that if when you meet and you both do the work and you're ready, then the union can happen. I'm just thinking about the soul and reminding us that the soul is huge and can be splitted to many, many aspects. And yes, there is some kind of agreement that depending on the contract that the soul chose to experience with each aspect, it will define if it's like a whole lifetime or not, or if it's like really when you start to do the work, it's the one that becomes such a. But it doesn't mean that if you met your twin flame and you chose not to do the work with him, that later on, or he chose not to do the work with you, I would say that later on in your life, when you're letting go of that completely and keeping your vibe up, and you find another aspect of you that will be ready to do the work with you.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to empower
Yeah.
people not to think about it as just one chance only.
Yeah.
And I
situation.
think
Good
also,
point.
I also think that like the we may need to evolve the idea of a one-to-one kind of thing, like I was this person in that past life and this person and he was that person, that each of us are a mixture of soul essences, of collective consciousnesses that came together, collective experiences that came together to experience through this body. Like I've met 3 women that have been regressed to lifetimes of Mary Magdalene. Those 3 women have had different life partners that have been their twin flames in this life that weren't Yeshua,
Yeah.
but had maybe an aspect or a connection to the Christ consciousness, but weren't. One woman, her child is carrying the essence of Yeshua, so that they could have a different relationship in this life. So it's so much more vast than we have the understanding right now at this point to understand what exactly a twin soul is. But
Yeah.
I really resonate with the fact of like, we're here, we've like come to be together to do our work, to serve the greater consciousness of the universe and this planet. And then once it starts to get into the stories and specifics, I kind of lose it a little bit, because then I think it can get kind of puts a person in a box.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're right. And really, we don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't know. We don't even know on an
So much.
individual. Yeah, I mean, even regardless of the channelings and transmissions and connections any of us have had, the truth is we really don't know anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't really know what's going to happen when this physical body, this physical vessel transitions. We don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But one thing that keeps me going, and I know, like, since even when I met Morgan the first day, things were happening, messages were coming in, and I was like, oh, this is it.
Yeah.
But I always had a mantra in understanding with the universe in regard to her or anything else, that whatever the universe has in store for me is something as good or better than where I'm at now with this person or someone else.
Yeah.
That openness, I think, is a very important in all aspects of our journey, uh, for that reason. Because the minute we start to put ourselves in a box, no matter how huge that box is, we're still confining ourselves.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. Absolutely. Yeah.
I think the one aspect that take this work to another level is the level of transparency with one another.
Yeah.
And the transparency that also, because there's so much that is happening, I could, and many of those type of relationship can talk about it, how you can feel each other from far, how you almost have like this kind of almost telepathic communication, sometimes sharing dreams, sometimes we had dreams, the same kind of dreams when I was in retreat somewhere else and he was something and I knew what he was doing almost. And even if he had like a connection with somebody else, I could feel it right away. There's so much that is happening um, that we are affecting each other, that the part of the transparency is like so essential, and kind of keep coming and being worked on, kind of if you want it or not.
Yeah.
Um,
I think also what you were sharing, Todd, for me, how it relates in my life is this non-attachment that is really necessary to have a really like expansive, I don't want to say freedom isn't the best word for it, but to really be able to set your partner free.
Liberated.
Yeah, for both souls to be liberated, I think
Yeah.
both need to practice non-attachment, so that a big fear for some people is that they're going to be abandoned by their partner. And there have
Mhm.
been some times in our relationship that we've been like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. I've got, like, it feels like it could be at a nexus point. Like, and that brings up for me some abandonment, used to bring up some abandonment fears for me. But what I had to do was like find a way that I could love him and still allow him to be free to do
Yeah.
whatever he needs to do for his evolution, and come into deep trust that I would be fine no matter what would happen for my life path, that I could fall in love again. I could, I could continue to create again, and he could fall. And in fact, maybe we could support each other. Like, I had to really get really clear where my attachments were and where my aversions were, where my desires were, so that both of us could be refined and really truly love each other. And
Yeah.
I think that's what happens in a non-monogamous relationship is, I mean, we're committed, we're with each other, like our relationship is so much about each other, but
We
we're
call
not
it monogamish.
monogamish. Yeah. That there's that we know that the other person wants to be with us. We're not forcing commitments onto the other person, like you have to be with me only, you can. But that generally is what happens, is that we spend all of our time together. But I think that's because we've completely set the other person free to follow
Yeah.
their own path and to do what they want to do in each
Yeah.
moment. And what that has done is that it's actually brought us closer to each other than maybe some relationships where there's expectations put, you can't hug this person, you can't sit next to them, you can't go out on a date. Where now we're at like a point where we can celebrate each other's experiences
Yeah.
and talk and come into a closer connection about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right on. Yeah. Absolutely.
I
You
think
know, go ahead.
sorry, do you want to say something?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Um, I think overall we're in a time that we're dreaming up new ways for everything. If it's the new systems
Yeah.
that are on the planet, it's also dreaming up new ways of the relationships, and really allowing and clear communication and clear agreements that are open, that are based on the values, that are based on um, unconditional love in any way. And that's if there's a good communication and transparency, if there's unconditional love to this path, to each other, to the soul, to the experience, anchoring compassion, all the mystery will continue, surprise in all the beautiful ways. And then you can celebrate sexuality in many ways. You can celebrate many other relationships in your life that are valuable, that carry medicine for you in different ways. And you don't hold back and resist what comes your way. You just
Yeah.
kind of allow the beauty to keep weave into your life, and also being tested with your boundaries and with your agreements. And that's very
Yeah.
important.
And examine them.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because, the thing about abandonment, I think almost everybody can relate to that. And I know with like in my relationship with Morgan, through the years, there might have been things that were said, but it took me a while to figure out, like to Michael's point, that that it's not even like what is being said to me is through the lenses of what I've experienced in past relationships. So she might be saying something that on a scale of 1 to 10 to 2, but I'm seeing it as a 10.
Yeah.
So it took me a while to figure out a long way the long route that it's my shit.
Yeah.
It's something that it's some kind of loop playing in my head.
Yeah.
And then back to what you were saying earlier, when I cleared that and I cleared that in myself, then it affected her, uh, because my frequency was changed,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and of course the relationship.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's a great example because I think we have a lot of us have the same core wounds when it comes to these relationship or to relationships, period,
Yeah.
where in a lot of cases that's our deepest wounds and the ones we can't see.
Yeah.
And because we're in a habit of looking at the other person as the problem. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's a good point too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think also like the soul can learn, the higher aspect of us can learn from seeing those two different perspective and
Yeah.
aspects of the experience to understand balance, to understand. So just by us figuring it out, finding the agreements, finding what works, there's so much information and wisdom being shared with the collective mind,
Yeah.
with the soul. Um, yeah, so
Yeah. And another thing too is, going back to, like your clients, one was Magdalene, but the partners wasn't Yeshua. Whatever happened in those past incarnations or whatever those things are, because they might just be codes. I might have been the left pinky toe of Jesus, not, you know what I mean? I mean, we
What a
really
deep
don't
reference
know.
like
But
that.
one thing we've talked about over the years in these circles has been when we bring alignment into our present moment, we're actually bringing into alignment the future, so to speak, the past, the parallels. So how do we know or not know that what we're actually doing right now isn't actually creating the story that we call our past and our future, and creating uh, an expanded energy itself, a new template. And I think that a big part of it has to do when it comes to the opportunities relationships have
yeah,
is the fact that we're in these old conditions and programs and patterns of behavior
right,
uh, that are rooted in these old relationships. And we're actually having to, from a conscious, human, sometimes painful energy field, to practice unconditional love in the
right,
moment with that person closest to you, to include examples of like what you were just talking about, with freeing that person or
mhm,
having a an open-mindedness, uh, and acceptance of, hey, if I really love him, if I really love her, then yes, I set her free. I set him free.
yeah. And it feels like in every moment, forgiveness is the key because I see a lot of the battles and the how people holding the stories and holding the energy and I feel like the moment that you start to bring more forgiveness and remind yourself like there's no other way eventually if you want to resolve something is you have to bring forgiveness to self, to others, to all the situation and then slowly the new awareness comes in and the new options that you maybe couldn't think about when you were in this frustrated energy you couldn't even dream about or think about starting to pop up as like oh wow so actually that's amazing um, resolution and all of it revolution
Yeah,
and that's kind of bringing into the experience and then you feel the new way and you feel like Michael shared like this new energy that suddenly we shared um and yeah um it's hard but it's the quickest you can find forgiveness in any relations in life.
I want to speak a little bit about forgiveness because I feel like there's also many definitions of what forgiveness means, and what's been helping me, I look at it as reconciliation and less of forgiveness, that it's more of like, okay, some things are happening for you that cause some suffering, some things happen for me that cause suffering. We like amplified each other's suffering together, um, and well, I can see my part, you can see your part, we can communicate it, but we can also appreciate each other. The fact that we're even here trying to have this conversation, like there's so much love supporting it. Because sometimes forgiveness can be seen as like a victim perpetrator kind of dynamic.
Yeah.
And if we step above our stories, all is forgiven, nothing ever wrong ever happened. So if we can just like see it from that higher perspective, that it's more about coming into resonance and reconciliation with each other, deeper understanding with each other, not that necessarily somebody has to be forgiven, or because that redeemer, redemption, savior kind of story, I think is kind of attached to that as well. And that we just need to come to really allow that the perfection of what's already here to emerge, so that we can align with that versus align with our stories and identities that are based out of separation consciousness, but to really see how we're really working together and supporting each other.
I think the key though for me is when there's things like that happen, even just to come into the conversation with actually what you noticed that was your part, and showing up with accountability and starting the conversation so the ears could be even open to the rest. If you come with a little bit more self-awareness of what you brought into the situation, and before you like want to try to share all the things that you felt because of how they did whatever they did, you come to like, I know that I did this and this and this, and you probably felt because of it that's this and this, but I want to share with you something from da 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 da.
Yeah.
And just kind of from the beginning bring your accountability for seeing your part, and the forgiveness starts from that, from forgiving yourself first, for like, okay, that's what I did, let's forgive that first, and then yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And then sharing the experience itself, sharing the experience and saying, this is what I experienced, or, listening to what they experienced. Because if you tell it from your experience, which I think, just like this conversation, I think this has the highest codes we can possibly pick up, not from, the lessons or the teachings, but here's my experience in the present moment or the near present moment. So if I have an experience and I say, okay, I walked into the room and I said this, and you did this or that, and I thought it meant this or that, and then I did this, then you start to understand what you were seeing might have another perspective, because they might say, well, no, that's not what I meant, or, I actually thought this. And so the experience, conveying the experience, I think has a huge alignment mechanism. One of the things too, I think that's kind of a nuance to these relationships, because they're rooted in that joint mission, and because they're rooted in some type of mutual connection, communion, to infinite intelligence, is, I guess I'll ask you the question, do you ever receive information, one or both of you, in regard to guidance of the relationship itself?
I had one time, sometimes I make a point at the end of the hypnosis session. I say, are there any final messages for me? Just to see if there's anything out. Most of the time they say, oh, good job.
Thank you so
good.
much.
Yeah, thanks. Like, come on, give me something juicier than that. But one time they did say to get Ron flowers, which I still haven't done yet. Yeah, but we haven't really had a house or anything. But
Get me a plant.
a plant.
Yeah. Give me a
But
plan.
it was, I think what was being shared was just tokens of appreciation,
Yeah.
and just because our life can be so much about the job, like what we're
Yeah.
doing and that's like, oh, maybe some courting would be nice, like some
I do remember that there was a moment actually that there was another session when I was going through something, and the the higher self client actually picked up and asked Michael to kind of support it, because they picked up that I'm going through something with
Yeah.
my father at the time, and they kind of like told them to kind of like give me the time. I don't remember exactly what the guidance was like, but kind of hold space for me and put his wings around me or something. Um, I remember there was a moment that was really strong experience that I had, and
There was another one that we had a practitioner. This was like right at the beginning of us doing these hypnosis sessions, and another practitioner was working with a client that I had worked with a few weeks before, that a lot of really profound information had come through and really startled me a lot. And it had to do with like a biblical character. And then another practitioner worked with the same woman, and again, more information came for us through that practitioner without it being provoked or anything. And basically the story was that there was a point within our soul's experience that we were sitting on a council together, and we didn't get along or we didn't agree. And so this life was about us coming down to learn our
Yeah, this was your punishment.
to learn to agree.
It's
But
kinda,
it-
I don't know
but
what
is-
kind of mess we
yeah.
made up there on that council,
But doesn't that fall in line with the paradoxical teachings of the universe, that that might have been the scenario, and you come here for your punishment / reward.
Yeah.
Your punishment is the reward, kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, totally. And it has
Um,
been extremely rewarding. There's nobody else I would rather
I know.
spend this much time with. I'm a
I
very
know.
like isolated person. I like to be in my little yogi cave, and
Yeah.
he,
We're the same way.
yeah,
And then you brought something else up 2 minutes ago. You know, because, and I know you guys are the same way. We're like 24/7. 24/7 connecting, seeing what's out in the community, doing our work, dealing with our own internal shadow work. I mean, all those things. And it's not all, I love that advice they gave you about the flowers things, because it's not that it takes a little bit of conscious effort to, there's a part of the old romantic 3D vibe that actually is okay.
yeah,
Human part, like
yeah,
the other night, I put on some nice music, and it worked, and I said, you want to dance? And we had a great time.
Yeah.
But it was so cool because it was very human.
yeah,
But I think it's not always easy to find those moments, because we all are so entrenched in the mission,
yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
and the other things that go with ascending. I wanted to ask y'all, you guys went to Australia.
Yeah,
How was that?
Whew,
it was intense.
many stories here.
Did you go to Uluru?
Open a box.
We did, yeah, you opened up a huge box. Yeah, we did go to Uluru. We spent some time in Uluru. We were in Melbourne to recover from our time in Uluru. And then we went to Flinders Ranges, which is grid point 44 on the UVG grid. It's one of the major cross points of the ley lines. We were also in Byron Bay. We saw some of the pyramids. There's quite a strong connection to
Wow.
Egyptian, or even like the Aboriginal people don't even know who built the pyramids that are there.
Wow, I didn't know
So there's
that.
like at least 2 pyramids that we saw. We climbed to the top of Walsh's pyramid, which is, it's like how many kilometers up? It was really intense to
Wow.
climb up this thing. But
It's really big.
what was really cool for me in Australia was we were there during the time of the cicadas, and I have this really deep appreciation for the cicadas from my childhood, because they would come up every 17 years. But in Australia, we just happened to be there, and these cicadas came up. And what the cicadas do is they sit at the roots of the trees, and the trees are drinking in the cosmic information, and the cicadas are drinking this juice from the roots. and then they come up and they sing these songs of cosmic vibrations, and it's like a rattle. It's like really, really intense how, and it moves across, like the cicadas send the vibration like through their community, and it's really a powerful sound
Yeah.
healing experience. And so we were sitting at Walsh's Pyramid, which is in the north east part of the
Cairns.
country, in Cairns. Yeah. We climbed up to the top, and the cicadas were like, we're on a
Wow.
pyramid, ancient pyramid connected to whatever source of information. These cicadas were like, they really rattled me up and inspired
Wow.
me. So yeah.
And then you reach to the top, and there's lots of blue butterflies just
Yeah.
sitting on you as you meditate. And
Next to Byron Bay, there was a massive stone circle formation that was there, and I think the story is that it's very old, much probably older than the Aboriginal people, and
Wow.
and the farmer, the person that took care of the land, got so freaked out by it being on his land and it being there that he it's the word, disassembled it. He tore it down and moved the stones to different places, which we see this at sacred sites all over the world, where different groups come in and for whatever reason they desecrate the site and break it apart, but the vibration is still quite
Yeah.
strong and powerful at these places. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Australia have a really interesting polarities of energies also working through. Every time you go to those ley line or sacred sites, you can start to feel the consciousness and the dark forces who try to take over. And so it wasn't easy journey, but we learned a lot, and it was powerful to be with the solar plexus of energetic field of the planet. And
we were there for that alignment, for the January 12th alignment, that there were so many people at different places around the world meditating. So we were right there for this umbilical cord connection time. It was quite powerful.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't even know there was pyramids over there, but somebody was on the show in the past 30 days that was talking about, I don't know if it was caves or it could have been a pyramid, I don't remember, but that there were, what do you call them, hieroglyphs or whatever, that were actually Egyptian.
Right.
Yeah.
They were the same things, the same thing that they find in Egypt.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what, did you guys want to do any type of blessing, any type of channeling, any type of activation, or share anything at all that you're doing? Any announcements, anything like that? All of the above?
All the
All
above.
of the
Yeah.
above. Sure. Yeah, we actually have something cool coming up. First, today it's a new moon, so we just did we're doing a weekly now through the moon phases. We're doing on our Facebook New Earth Ascending page and community, we're doing a weekly meeting as meditation and a prayer. Also on our YouTube channel. Yeah. So basically, we just did it before the meeting with you today, and the next phase is like the quarter moon, and then full moon, and then again quarter, and then the next new moon. So if you follow the moon, you can join those live meditations and prayers, and we share information. We call it Soul Study.
Cool.
And also we are in a month from now, on the next 24, we're starting to teach the modality that we upgraded and created from what we learned. It's called Illuminated Quantum Healing. So we're going to teach the regression work that we do, with how to do it remotely, and all the things that we learned, that we're advancing the information that we received from Dolores Cannon. And so there's a lot about how to work with different consciousnesses and how to work with different attachments, and what the healings are available that you can do through sessions, what questions to ask, how to hold space, and how to guide clients, and all the interview process. There's so much that we expanded on the original teachings that we received. And
there's also a strong thread of self-development as well, because we feel like that's such an important part of any type of work that anyone does, is just like keeping yourself fresh and keeping yourself evolved. So we're going to do something unique, in that we're going to do, I think, 24th, 25th, and 26th. It's 3 days. We're going to take a break for that week so that people can practice and do some things. And then we're going to meet up again the 1st and the 2nd, so that we can do some more talk and study. So it's going to be really thorough.
Wow.
And have lots of space and lots of time, where some of the other training courses that do something similar, it has its videos and it does its thing, but we really wanted to make a lot of time for people to feel really confident, have time to ask lots of questions, get feedback. And so we're really excited. We've had so many requests for us to start doing this, not just from like human beings, but like non-human consciousness.
I think those are, I don't think those are more like mandates, I think.
Yeah, they're like, come on, you guys, get on with it. So we're really excited to share this, and it's been something we've been working on for a while, and
Wow.
really happy to share that.
Very cool.
We'll start. We're doing the first one as an application. It's going to be recorded. So if you want to be taking part of it, it's reduced price and it's going to be recorded, and maybe you're going to be used for our future teachings. So people who want to be part of it can email us and we'll send them an application form for it, and we'll have a conversation to feel that it's a good fit for this one. And so those are the 2 exciting things, teaching this. Of course, having sessions right now is super exciting because a lot of information for this period, or for this coming season, is coming up. We're going through really beautiful quickening, and there are more information that is starting to be available to be shared with the collective.
Yeah.
So that's also very exciting.
It is exciting. It's very exciting. That's exciting, and what's going on in general is exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all good. Maybe we can finish. I'll do a little light language. So just inviting everyone to restack their bones, just finding that comfortable position. Maybe you can roll your shoulders forward and back a little bit, just to allow your shoulder blades to hug into the back of the ribs. Feel your wings connecting right there towards the center of the spine, so you can open your heart. Find your breath. Feel the crown of your head opening like a flower, drinking in the light of the divine. Use your breath and use your imagination to welcome fresh, clear, clean energies into your body, softening all of the parts that might be held or bound from past experiences. Just allow this light, this energy to soothe every fiber of your being. I'm going to do a little bit of light language now, just a little bit of sounding of my own body temple, my own vessel, to welcome in codes from my higher self to be shared with you. And if you're welcome to receive, then use your intention, use your breath just to open, and we'll see what wants to come through me now. I'd like to welcome the presence of the divine, welcoming Mother, Father, God, star families of light, ancestors of light. Shum dun 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 yum dun 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 dun. Om 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 ay nan 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 da om 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 hai ando am gai nan da we am gu am gai am ma we am gu ai am ai am. Hum bum 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 ai yang gang gao ai yang gong gong ai yang gao gong 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 gong. Gung ga le yang gong hong gang ga yin yang gong gong ga hong gang ga hong gong 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 gang ga yang hang gang 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 gong 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 ga yang gong 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 gang ga yang gong 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 ga yang gong 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 gang gai yang gong gang gai yang nai om bo we ma we an dei la gai am mo yang gai yang gang 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 Thank you for this opportunity to connect, to share our love, to open to love, to open to perfection, to aligning with love. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah.
Love
Thank
you guys.
Yeah, love you so much. Thank you for all that you do and all of this immaculate space that you hold to gather all of us together. It's just beautiful work that you're doing. Thank you, brother.
You're very welcome. I look forward to the next collaboration. And you guys, if you can, put your links up in the comments. And this is also live on YouTube. You can put it up. Put up the links in the YouTube as well,
Great.
so people can find you for this exciting work you got coming out.
Oh, thank you, brother.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Many
Y'all
blessings
take care.
to you, Morgan. Yeah, lots of love.
Much love. Have a beautiful month, beautiful lunar cycle.
We'll see you in the physical this year. I have a feeling.
I feel
Oh,
it
yeah, I
too.
feel
Yeah.
it too.
All right. Take care.
Bye bye.
You too.